Welcome back to the deep dive. And today we're opening a file that I think a lot of us have mentally archived under Do Not Disturb.
That's a good way to put it.
We are going back to middle school.
And, not just to reminisce, we're talking about the actual research on early adolescence.
Thankfully, yeah, not physically going there, but we are unpacking this really complex and, frankly, turbulent period.
It is. It's a fascinating and, often really misunderstood window of time. We're talking roughly ages 11 to 14.
Right. The era of braces, bad haircuts, the sudden and terrifying realization that you have body odor.
Oh, the body odor, a rite of passage.
And just this crushing weight of social awkwardness. I think for most adults, when we look back, we just see it as this survival mode period.
Yeah, you just kind of keep your head down.
Exactly. Get through the hormones, and you just hope you emerge in high school, relatively unscathed.
But when you actually dig into the source material we've got here, papers from psychology blogs, Pew Research, education strategy papers, that whole dismissal, it starts to feel like a massive oversight.
It's a huge oversight. In fact, if there's one single headline for this entire deep dive, it's that middle school is not some waiting room for adulthood.
No, not at all. It's actually a critical developmental powerhouse.
A powerhouse.
Yeah.
I mean, biologically speaking, the rate of growth and just the neurological renovation happening between 11 and 14, it's second only to infancy.
Which is an absolutely staggering thought.
It is, second only to being a baby.
Right.
So you have this creature that looks like a semi-adult. They're getting taller. They can argue with you. They're articulate. But inside, their whole biology is undergoing this massive construction project.
A project just as intense as, learning to walk or speak for the first time.
And that creates what the researchers call the middle school paradox.
Right, which is this central tension. You have this explosion of biological potential. Their reaction times get faster, muscles get stronger, the brain is developing at this incredible rate.
So all the hardware is getting this massive upgrade.
Exactly. But then you look at the educational and the psychological data, and this is the exact moment where we see the dip.
The dip.
Yeah. Academic performance often just flatlines or it drops, self-esteem crashes, and risk-taking behavior, it just spikes.
So the software seems to be glitching out completely.
That is a great way to put it. The machine is more powerful than ever, but the steering is completely erratic.
And the mission for us today, for this deep dive, is to really understand the mechanics of that glitch.
Right. We want to move past that lazy narrative of just, it's raging hormones.
Yeah, that's a cliche.
It is. And we want to look at the specific biological, the psychological, and the social gears that are actually turning. Because, and this is the part that really got me, the habits and the identity that are formed in these 3 years. They often predict life outcomes more accurately than what happens in high school.
Wait, okay, that's counterintuitive. We obsess over high school. That's the transcript that goes to college. That's the permanent record we're all threatened with.
Right.
But you're saying the die is cast earlier.
In many, many ways, yes. Think of it like this. High school is the performance, but middle school is the rehearsal.
And if you learn the wrong lines in rehearsal,
it is very, very hard to improvise a new script later on.
Wow. Okay, so let's get under the hood then. Let's start with the biology, because I think the standard assumption is that middle schoolers take these crazy risks, jumping off things, doing dumb stuff online, because their brains are just broken.
Or at least disconnected somehow.
Yeah, right. But the neuroscientific work, like the stuff from the Leiden psychology blog, it suggests it's not a malfunction at all. It's a feature.
It is absolutely a feature of the design. And to understand this, you have to look at two specific parts of the brain.
Okay.
You've got the prefrontal cortex, and then you have the striatum.
The prefrontal cortex is the famous one. That's the CEO of the brain, right? The part that does decision-making, impulse control.
Correct. It's the brakes. And we've known for a long time that the prefrontal cortex doesn't finish developing until you're in your mid-20s.
Right.
So for a long time, the theory was just, kids have no brakes. They have all these impulses, and there's just nothing there to stop them.
A pretty simple explanation.
Very simple. But this new research adds a really crucial layer. It's not just that the brakes are weak, it's that the gas pedal is floored.
And the gas pedal is the striatum.
Exactly. The striatum is a key part of the brain's reward system. And in early adolescence, it becomes hypersensitive.
Hypersensitive?
Yeah, we call this reward sensitivity. So when an adolescent experiences something rewarding, winning a game, getting a laugh from a friend, eating a bunch of sugar, that part of their brain, if you see it on an MRI, it just lights up like a Christmas tree.
So it's much more intense than for a child or an adult.
Oh, significantly more. The highs are higher, and the lows are lower.
Wow.
But the nuance here, and this is where that light and study is so cool, is what actually triggers that high. They did this experiment where they had adolescents play a gambling game while they were inside an MRI scanner.
Always a good idea to introduce gambling to 13-year-olds for science.
All in the name of research, right? So here's what they found. When the teens played the game alone, the reward activation in the brain was there, but it was, pretty moderate.
Right.
But when they told the teen that a friend was watching them play or that they were winning money for that friend,
Oh, I see where this is going.
the striatum went nuclear. It was just firing on all cylinders, a massive dopamine rush.
But what if they were playing for someone they didn't like?
Crickets. Barely any activation at all.
This completely reframes that reckless teen stereotype.
It really does.
It suggests that all this risk-taking isn't about being self-destructive or just stupid. It's about social connection.
Exactly. They are biologically wired to chase the high of peer approval and social status.
So if you look at it through, like, an evolutionary lens, does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. Adolescence is the time when all mammals, not just us, need to leave the safety of the parent's nest.
Right. Go find a mate. Find your own tribe.
And leaving the nest is dangerous. If your brain was wired for safety first, you would never, ever leave. You'd just stay in your childhood bedroom forever.
So nature has to give you a push.
A huge chemical push, a dopamine override that basically makes you value social status and exploration more than your own safety.
So the overactive striatum is basically nature's way of kicking you out of the house.
Yes. It's the engine of independence. The problem, of course, is that in our modern world, risk-taking doesn't mean hunting a mammoth or exploring a new valley.
No, it means driving too fast or posting something you shouldn't online.
The evolutionary drive is the same, but the environment has just changed so dramatically.
That makes so much sense. So the biology is pushing them toward their peers and away from their parents. But while their brain is doing this high wire act, their body is throwing them this massive curveball.
Puberty.
Yeah, the physical changes.
Hmm.
And looking at the article from parents in our stack, what really struck me was just the unfairness of the timeline.
The bell curve of puberty. It is wildly uneven.
You can see it in any 7th grade class photo. You've got some kids who look like they could drive a truck, standing next to kids who look like they should still be in 3rd grade.
And that disparity is usually gendered, though not always. On average, girls start puberty around age 11. They'll see breast development, the big growth spurt, the onset of menstruation.
And the boys are lagging behind.
Usually by a year or two, they tend to start around 12 or 13.
And that 1-year gap at that age is an eternity.
It creates a massive social mismatch. You've got girls who are physically looking like young women, and they're dealing with all the sexualization that comes with that from the world.
While their male peers are physically and mentally still kind of playing with action figures.
Exactly. But even within the same gender, the variation is a huge source of stress. Being the early bloomer or the late bloomer, either one is a source of intense anxiety.
And then there's the hygiene factor. The article mentioned the onset of active sweat glands.
Which sounds so clinical.
It does, but in reality, it's the dawn of the Axe body spray era.
The chemical warfare in the locker rooms, yeah.
It's just a sudden, visceral betrayal by your own body.
Yeah.
Up until age 10 or so, you can run around all day and you just smell like
Yeah.
a kid, maybe a little dusty.
Right.
And then suddenly, at 11, you smell pungent. You have body odor. You have to learn this whole new regimen deodorant, showering daily, just to be socially acceptable.
It really contributes to this feeling that you're under constant surveillance, that your own body is this problem that has to be managed.
And while you're managing this smelly, awkward, growing body, your brain is shifting gears in how it even processes information.
The big cognitive shift.
Yeah, the research talks about the move from concrete to abstract thinking, which on the surface seems like a good thing, right? You're getting smarter.
It is a good thing, ultimately. But it's a really painful transition. Up until age 10 or 11, children are very concrete thinkers. Rules are rules. Reality is what you can see and touch.
Mom said no, so the answer is no. End of story.
Exactly. But around 11, the capacity for abstract thought just flickers on. They start to understand hypotheticals. They start to see nuance.
They start to realize that their parents are just people who might be wrong.
Exactly that. They start questioning authority, not necessarily because they're being rebellious, but because they suddenly have the cognitive tools to spot hypocrisy. They can see the gray areas.
And they also start to understand that choices made today affect the future self idea.
They're just terrible at it.
They're total beginners.
It's like watching someone learn to ride a unicycle for the first time. They understand the concept of balance intellectually, but they're going to fall. Constantly.
So they can understand that failing a test has future consequences.
But that reward sensitivity we just talked about, the need to play video games with a friend right now, that immediate dopamine hit just overrides the abstract future consequence almost every time.
So you've got a brain that's just chasing dopamine, a body that's morphing unpredictably, and a mind that is just waking up to the complexity of the world.
And right in the center of that perfect storm is the question of identity. Who am I?
This is the central psychological crisis of adolescence, right?
It is. And the source from ACT for Youth breaks this down beautifully into two main processes, exploration and commitment.
Okay, let's unpack those. Exploration sounds like the fun part. It's the montage sequence.
It is the montage. It's trying on different hats, new music, new friend groups, new political opinions you just heard about, new hobbies.
This week I'm a goth, next week I'm a preppy athlete.
Exactly that. And it's a necessary data gathering process.
Yeah.
You have to simulate these different versions of yourself to see what fits, what feels right.
But for the parents watching this, it just looks like instability. It looks like their kid is flaking out or, losing their mind.
And for the kid themselves, it feels like anxiety. The research is pretty clear that high levels of exploration, while they're necessary, are associated with something called identity confusion.
Which leads to what?
Higher rates of depression and anxiety, at least in the short term. It is fundamentally stressful to wake up in the morning and not know who you are, to not know where you stand.
You feel unmoored.
Completely, which is why the goal is the second phase, commitment.
And what does commitment look like?
Commitment is when you start to settle. You choose a set of values, a peer group you belong to, a direction you want to head in. The data shows that adolescents who achieve this sense of commitment, who can actually say, this is who I am, this is what I believe, they have much higher self-esteem and much lower anxiety.
But you can't just skip to the end, can you? You can't get to commitment without doing all that hard, messy work of exploration.
You can't. And if a kid just adopts their parents' identity without ever questioning it, psychologists have a name for that. It's called identity foreclosure.
And that's not good.
It's not. It often leads to a major crisis later in life, in their 30s or 40s. You have to do the messy work when you're young.
There's a great Oscar Wilde quote in the source material, "Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken."
Yeah.
We usually see that on like an inspirational poster in a guidance counselor's office. But when you apply it to a 12-year-old, it's actually kind of a cruel instruction.
It is, because they have no idea what self even means yet. Be yourself is a terrifying command when the self is completely under construction.
So they're looking everywhere else for a blueprint.
At everyone else. There's peers, celebrities, influencers on TikTok. They're just trying to find a template to copy.
And this is where the adults in their lives usually get it wrong, isn't it? We try to tell them who to be.
We do. But the research suggests a very different role for us.
Which is?
Well, the study suggests that while teens are looking to their peers for immediate day-to-day feedback, they're looking to adults, family, teachers, community members for future templates.
So what a finished adult identity looks like.
Exactly. So instead of lecturing them on their choices, we should be narrating our own.
Kind of showing your work.
That's the perfect phrase for it. Telling them stories about when you were 13 or when you were 20. Talking about how you decided on your career path or how you figured out your political values.
But not in a you should do this too way.
No, never. It's a this is my path, this is my struggle way. It just gives them data points. It humanizes the process and shows them it's possible to get to the other side.
I love that. It treats them like an apprentice in life rather than a subordinate.
Well said.
But even with great adult role models, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the peer group.
The social center of gravity just shifts completely.
It does. And we have a paper here from the International Journal of Education and Research that really dives into peer influence. And I was interested in this distinction they make between peer pressure and peer influence.
Yes.
I have to admit, I've always used those two terms interchangeably.
Most people do. But the difference is huge. So peer pressure is the classic after-school special scenario.
Right. The kid hands you a cigarette and says, smoke this when you're a loser.
Exactly. It's direct, it's coercive, it's active persuasion. The whole Just Say No campaign was built around that idea.
And that does happen.
It does. But what the research shows is that peer influence, or sometimes it's called peer contagion, is far more pervasive and honestly way more powerful.
How is it different?
It's indirect. It's not a sales pitch. It's more like a virus. It's something you catch just by being in the environment. It's osmosis.
So it's the subtle adoption of mannerisms, vocabulary.
Attitudes, unspoken rules, everything. If you hang out with a group that values being cynical and mocking authority, you will slowly become more cynical. Not because anyone told you to, but because that's the social currency of that group.
And this brings up the whole concept of social learning theory.
Albert Bandura. This is foundational stuff in psychology, the famous Bobo doll experiments.
Can you just remind us of the details there?
Sure. Pandora basically showed that children learn aggression not just by being rewarded or punished for it, but simply by watching it.
Just by observation.
Yes. If they watched an adult come in and beat up this inflatable clown doll, the Bobo doll, and that adult faced no consequences,
The kids would do it too.
the kids would mimic that exact aggression later on. They learned it just by observing a model.
So for a middle schooler, the adult beating the doll is the popular kid in class acting out.
Precisely. If the popular kid, the high-status peer, acts out in class and gets a laugh from everyone, even if the teacher yells at them, the real reward is the social one.
Laugh.
The laugh. And the other kids see that. They model the behavior. They learn the equation. Disruption equals status.
This all sounds pretty grim for parents. I mean, if the brain is wired for peers and all the learning happens via peers, are parents just obsolete?
Not at all.
Do we just stock the fridge and wait for them to turn 18?
No, not at all. In fact, this is where the research offers a lot of hope. The style of parenting acts as a powerful buffer against that negative peer influence.
Okay, so the source material outlines the 4 classic styles.
Right. Authoritarian, authoritative, permissive, and neglectful.
Let's break those down, because the first 2 names are so similar and easy to mix up.
They are. So authoritarian is the drill sergeant. Think high rules, low warmth. The answer is always because I said so.
Got it.
Then you have permissive. That's the cool parent. High warmth, but very low rules. No curfew. Just be my best friend.
And neglectful is pretty self-explanatory.
Low warmth, low rules. Just absent physically or emotionally.
And the winner is?
Authoritative. And this is the sweet spot. It's the combination of high warmth and high standards.
So you can be strict as long as you're also loving and responsive.
You have to be both. The data is incredibly clear that teens raised with authoritative parenting are the least susceptible to negative peer pressure.
And why is that?
Because they have a secure base. They don't need to desperately conform to some random peer group to feel valid or safe, because they already have that validation at home. But they also have boundaries that help them learn to self-regulate.
It's interesting because I think a lot of parents, especially in these years, they drift toward being permissive because they're terrified of the conflict.
They want to be the confidant, not the bad guy.
Right. But you're saying that backfires.
It does. The research suggests that while teens claim they want total freedom, they actually interpret a lack of rules as a lack of caring.
So my parents don't care what I do translates emotionally to my parents don't care about me.
Exactly. They need the wall to push against. It actually makes the world feel contained and safe, even while they're complaining about it.
Okay. We can't talk about the social world of today without talking about the digital layer that's over everything. The Pew Research data in our stack it's heavy.
It is. It's the omnipresent backdrop to everything we've just discussed.
Okay, let's get into the numbers.
Yeah.
45% of teens admit they spend too much time on social media.
Which surprised me. I thought they would be in total denial.
Me too. But they actually know it's an issue. They feel the compulsion.
They do. But there's a really interesting psychological defense mechanism at play here that the data points to. It's called the third person effect.
Okay, what is that?
It's a cognitive bias where people believe that mass media affects other people more than it affects themselves.
Right.
And you see it right in the Pew data. 48% of teens say social media has a negative effect on people their age. They see the drama, the depression, the bullying happening to everyone else.
But when you ask them if it has a negative effect on them personally,
that number plummets to just 14%.
So it's, oh, those poor other kids, they're getting totally brainwashed. But me, I'm built different. I can handle it.
Precisely. It allows them to critique the toxicity of the platform without having to admit their own vulnerability to it. It's a way of maintaining a sense of control.
But when you break this data down by gender, that I can handle its narrative really starts to crumble, especially for girls.
The gender divide is stark. Girls report significantly more negative impacts than boys across the board. We're talking body image, sleep loss, exposure to drama.
And what are the numbers there?
25% of girls, a full quarter, explicitly say social media hurts their mental health. For boys, that number is 14%.
That's a huge gap.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Is the algorithm just feeding them different content, or is it about how they use the platforms?
I think it's likely both. Girls' socialization, even offline, often revolves more around relational standing and visual presentation. How do I look and where do I fit in?
And social media is a hyper-accelerant for those two things.
A massive one. It literally quantifies your popularity with likes and follower counts, and it demands this curated visual perfection. It targets the specific insecurities of adolescent girls with laser precision.
Whereas for boys, it might be more about gaming or just entertainment.
It can be. The psychological tax can be lower for them, though it's certainly not zero.
But we have to be careful here. The whole point of this deep dive is to find the nuance. If we just land on social media bad, we're missing the other half of the data.
We are, and the positive data is really strong. 74% of teens say it makes them feel more connected to their friends.
That's 3/4.
Yep. 63% say they use it as a creative outlet. And crucially, for marginalized teens, maybe an LGBTQ student in a very conservative town, or a kid with a super niche interest like astrophysics, social media can be a lifeline. It's where they find their people.
And there was one stat that I found really, really hopeful. 34% of teens are using social media to find information about mental health.
That is a critical finding, and that number was even higher for Black teens than for white or Hispanic teens.
Which suggests that in communities where access to formal therapy might be limited or expensive or just stigmatized.
Social media is filling the gap. Teens are going on TikTok and Instagram to learn about anxiety, to find coping mechanisms. Now, is all that information accurate?
Of course not.
No. But the seeking of help, the destigmatization that is happening there.
So if a parent just comes in and bans it or just demonizes it all the time, they might actually cutting off a vital support system.
Exactly. It's such a double-edged sword. You can't just dull the sharp edge without losing the utility of the tool itself.
Okay, let's pivot from the screen to the classroom. This is where the rubber really meets the road for a lot of families.
For sure.
We had this strategy paper from Chiefs for Change about what they call the forgotten middle. And they opened with a claim that made me stop reading and double-check the citation.
I know exactly the one you're talking about. It stops everyone in their tracks.
They say that academic achievement in 8th grade is a stronger predictor of college and career readiness than high school performance.
It's wild, isn't it? We are all culturally conditioned to think high school is the show. That's when the GPA really counts. That's when the transcripts get printed for colleges.
But the data just doesn't bear that out. The trajectory is set earlier. Why? Why is 8th grade the magic number?
Because 8th grade really represents the culmination of all the foundational skills. If you leave 8th grade without real fluency in math, without strong reading comprehension, and this is the crucial part, without academic self-efficacy.
Meaning the belief that you can learn.
Yes, the belief that your effort matters. If you don't have those things by the end of middle school, it is incredibly difficult to turn that ship around in 9th grade. The gap just gets too wide, too fat.
But here comes the paradox again. Just as the stakes are getting so much higher, the performance drops, the dip, as they call it.
The dip is real, grades go down, engagement goes down, and the Chiefs for Change paper argues this isn't just because kids are lazy or hormones are raging, it's a structural failure.
A developmental mismatch.
That's the term. A mismatch between what the kid desperately needs at that age and what the school system provides.
Okay, so let's walk through that. What does a 12-year-old need developmentally?
They need close relationships, they need to feel seen by adults, they need autonomy, but within a really safe, known container.
And what does the typical middle school look like?
It's a factory.
It is. You go from elementary school,
Yeah.
one teacher, one classroom, that teacher knows your dog's name, to this massive impersonal building.
And you have 7 classes. You switch rooms every 50 minutes. You have 7 different teachers, and each of them is seeing 150 kids a day.
So who really knows you? Who sees you when you're having a bad day?
Nobody. You're anonymous.
Right.
And anonymity is absolute poison for a middle schooler. If they feel anonymous, they disengage. The logic is, nobody here cares if I'm here or not, so why should I even try?
So what's the fix for that? The paper talks about something called teaming.
Teaming is the attempt to hack the system. You take a big impersonal school and you make it feel small. So you take a grade level, say 300 kids, and you break them into teams of maybe 100.
And you assign a specific group of teachers to that team.
Right. The math, science, English, and history teachers, they all share the same 100 kids.
So they're seeing the same faces all day.
And this is the most important part. They share a common planning time. So on Tuesday at 2 p.m., those four teachers sit down in a room together and they talk about the kids.
So they can connect the dots.
Yes. Hey, Sarah was acting out in history today. Did you see that in math? No, she was really quiet in my class, but she looked exhausted. Suddenly, a pattern emerges. They can intervene. They can create a real safety net.
It's basically mimicking the closeness of elementary school within the structure of a high school.
That's it, exactly. It ensures every kid is known.
Now, this brings us to the parents' role in all this. And I have to say, this part of the research triggered my own anxiety.
I think it does for most parents.
There's this natural tendency in middle school for parents to step back. You think, they're big kids now, I shouldn't be hovering. But the research gets really specific about how to step back.
And how not to. It differentiates between home-based involvement and academic socialization.
Let's define those. Home-based involvement sounds good.
It does. And it's what most parents think being involved means. It means checking the agenda every night, editing their essay, solving the algebra problem with them at the kitchen table.
Which usually ends in screaming. That's not how Mrs. Johnson teaches it.
Right. The tears over the kitchen table. And here's the kicker. The research suggests that for middle schoolers, that kind of direct oversight, that homework surveillance, is actually negatively correlated with achievement.
Wait, negatively. So helping them with their homework actually hurts.
It can, because what it often does is undermine their autonomy.
Yeah.
It sends the signal, I don't trust you to manage this on your own, and it creates dependency. If mom always fixes the essay, I don't have to learn how to write better.
Okay, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here. If I stop checking the homework, my kid is going to get a 0. They will forget the assignment. They will fail the class. Are you saying I should just let them crash and burn?
I'm saying you have to shift your energy. You have to move from being the task manager to being the consultant.
And that's where academic socialization comes in.
That's it. Academic socialization isn't about the specific assignment due tomorrow. It's about the value of education. It's the big picture conversations.
What does that sound like in practice?
It's sitting at dinner and saying, I know you hate history class right now, but learning how to analyze sources is going to help you be a better coder or a better artist or a better lawyer. It's linking what they're doing in school to their goals, their future.
You're selling the vision, not managing the task.
You're mentoring. You're asking questions like, what's your plan for getting this project done, rather than saying, you need to do this now. And yes, that might mean they miss an assignment. They might get a 0.
And that's terrifying for a parent.
It is. But the research says a 0 in 7th grade that teaches a lasting lesson about time management is infinitely more valuable than an A that was earned by the parent's constant nagging.
That is a hard pill to swallow, but I see the logic. You're building their executive function rather than being the executive function for them.
Exactly.
Okay, we have one final piece of this huge puzzle to unpack, and this is about the psychology of transitions. The move from elementary to middle school or middle to high.
A huge moment of stress.
It is. And we have a study by Rudolph and her colleagues that uses the diathesis stress model. Now, you're going to have to walk us through this because diathesis sounds like a disease.
It does sound very medical, doesn't it? But it's actually a very simple, very elegant equation used in psychology.
Okay, break it down for us.
Stress is the external event. In this case, the transition to a new, bigger school. Diathesis is your internal vulnerability or predisposition.
So stress is the storm, and diathesis is how well built your roof is before the storm hits.
That is a perfect analogy. The model basically says, the storm, which is the transition, it doesn't destroy every house. The outcome depends entirely on the quality of the roof, the diathesis.
So what did the study find?
They looked at kids moving to middle school and found that the transition itself wasn't inherently bad for everyone. In fact, some kids really thrived.
So who are the ones who suffered the most?
The ones with what the researchers called maladaptive beliefs, the kids with a high diathesis. Specifically, kids who went into the transition already believing they had no control over their academic or social success.
So, learned helplessness.
Precisely. Let's imagine Kid A. Kid A enters middle school, gets a C on the first big math test. Kid A thinks, see, I'm just stupid. The teacher probably hates me. There's nothing I can do about it.
And that belief creates a spiral.
It does. That belief leads to disengagement. Why bother trying? Which leads to more stress, which leads to depression.
Now what about Kid B?
Kid B gets the exact same C on the exact same test. But Kid B has what we call perceived control. Kid B thinks, wow, this is way harder than 5th grade. I need to study differently. I need to go ask the teacher for help.
So the external event is identical, But the internal narrative changes the outcome entirely.
Completely. Kid B navigates the transition with their mental health intact. Kid A spirals. The transition just amplifies the vulnerability that was already there.
And this circles right back to what we were just saying about parenting. The goal isn't to prevent your kid from ever getting a C grade.
No.
The goal is to build up their perceived control so that when they get the C grade, it doesn't become an identity crisis.
You absolutely nailed it. It is all about fostering a sense of agency. If a child feels that they have agency, that their actions influence their outcomes, they are inoculated against so much of the potential trauma of middle school.
Wow, this has been massive. I feel like we've just dissected a decade of therapy in under an hour.
It's a lot of moving parts for sure.
Let's try to synthesize this for everyone listening. What are the big takeaways?
I think you have to see it as an interconnected system. You have these biological accelerators, the reward system, pushing them toward risk and social connection.
Which makes their social world take over their brain.
Right. And that social need makes the school system, which is often structurally mismatched to their needs, a really high-stakes environment.
And underneath all of that is this desperate, messy search for identity.
It really is a perfect storm, but the concept I really want to leave people with is the idea of scaffolding.
Like in construction.
Exactly like in construction. When you build a skyscraper, you put up all this scaffolding around it. It supports the building while the internal structure, the concrete and steel, is hardening.
And once the building is solid, you take the scaffolding down.
Right. Adolescents are under construction. They scream, "Leave me alone, I'm independent." But they are not structurally sound yet.
They are wobbly.
They are very wobbly. They need scaffolding. They need the school to provide those teacher teams. They need parents to provide academic socialization and warmth. They need safe ways to explore their identity.
They want to walk the tightrope.
But they desperately need to know that the net is there if they fall.
And we, the adults, are the net.
We are the net.
That brings us to our final provocation. We started by calling this whole thing the middle school paradox, the idea that they are growing so fast and yet struggling so much.
And my challenge to the listener is to really rethink that narrative of storm and stress. We culturally dread these years. We make jokes about them. We treat middle schoolers like monsters or aliens.
For sure.
But what if we started to view this behavior, the moodiness, the risk-taking, the pulling away, not as defects, but as necessary, evolutionary beta testing?
They are beta testing adulthood.
Yes, and beta tests are buggy by definition. They crash, you lose data. But you don't punish the software developer for finding bugs during a beta test. You thank them, you debug, you learn, you improve the code.
I love that. And I guess a final question, building on the data from Chiefs for Change in Pew, if we know that 8th grade is the true predictor of future success, why do we put all our cultural weight on high school? Why do we wait until 11th grade to get really serious about the future?
It's the big question, isn't it? We invest heavily in early childhood with pre-K, and we invest heavily in high school with college prep. The middle is truly the forgotten middle.
And maybe if we shifted our resources, our patience, and our empathy to that messy 11 to 14 window.
We wouldn't have to do so much damage control later on.
Instead of just surviving the middle school years, maybe we should be investing in them as the actual foundation of adulthood.
I couldn't agree more.
That is all for this deep dive. Go find a middle schooler in your life today. Don't hug them. They'll probably hate that.
Definitely do not hug them.
Just give them a nod. Let them know you see them.
A fist bump might be acceptable. Maybe.
Maybe. Thanks for listening.